I have two companies that we run out of here. This logo is Red Blue, stands for Red Blue Collective, and that is our mission is to foster an ecosystem to lower barriers in physical product development. So we have a bunch of different things that we do. We offer educational services. We have events to help businesses find and innovation. We also do corporate training programs. Red Blue Collective was started by Callie Keene from K-Form, and he's been doing business development and product development for a long time. So I joined forces with him after going through a series of classes, and one of the first things we made is we did a start to Kickstarter product. So in 20 days, we came up with an idea for a spinner. So everybody's seen spinners by now, but this is the Alpha spinner. And at the time, September to August in 2016, there were no spinners really. So we did a Kickstarter campaign we did a spinner, we identified a market, we did a social media marketing campaign, designed the product, prototyped it in-house, found a manufacturer, figured out how to price the product so that would be sustainable, launched the product, followed up with a bunch of add-ons, and then after that, we've continued to design other products. So we found a formula that we like. So there's people that we identify in the market as being influencers, people we understand, products we understand. So once we identify someone we want to work with, then we reach out to them, see if they want to work with us. So one of the first people we thought, hey, this would be a great person to work with, was Chris Bathgate. So if you look at this book here, Chris Bathgate is a fine artist from Baltimore. He does CNC metal art. And this is a book of his works, and you can see he uses CNC machines to make complex engineered sculptures. These are static sculptures, so they don't really do anything. So they range in size from something that'll fit in your pocket to over 6 foot, and they're shown in museums and collected with people all over the world. So we love his art. We reached out to him, we went and visited him, just blown away by the stuff that he was making. And we asked if he'd like to do a project with us, and he agreed. So we did a product with him where he designed it, we manufactured it, and we co-launched it. This is the Artifact Spinner. So this is the Chris Bathgate Artifact Spinner. So we sold these through our website with a pre-order system, and then manufactured them at K-Form Incorporated. So that's Callie's day job. He's product manager there. After this product, we did another one with Chris. This is the Netsuke. A Netsuke is like a Japanese bead to hold a sage mono pouch on an obi belt, and they were over the years they turned into an art form and a collectible. This is a hybrid version of that, so the sage mono pouch and the bead together. It's also a lanyard bead, so there's a hole all the way through. It has a functional iris mechanism, CNC machined here and the back on the Matsura Tiger CNC mill. So that's a pretty complex little sculpture work, and it comes with a certificate of authenticity, and it's signed by the artist. We've continued to do work with him, and we're actually developing another product with him as well. But as we've moved forward, we've identified some other cool projects and makers that we want to work with. So we continue to come up with our own designs or find influencers that are working on a thing, and they're looking to scale that thing. So we then work with them to bring that to a larger audience or make a new, more complicated or cool version of their product. So if you look around the office, you'll see like a variety of different things that Chris made or we've collected. So this is just a piece of artwork that Chris made that has an aesthetic that came from two different products. You saw the Artifact Spinner has a similar aesthetic to this piece, and this is a slider, the S2. So that's a similar mechanism and look. This one doesn't actually slide, but you can see the design theme there. And this one's called the Ratchet. So the center hub rotates in one direction. So working with Chris has been a blast because he's a maker, like the very definition of a maker. He builds his own CNC machines, he makes all his own artwork, and we've been able to leverage that kind of energy and find other people in the community that we can work with, have a blast, be able to collect their work, participate with them in developing products and then moving forward. So it's been a lot of fun. that's basically what it is. So that company was Revolve Makers. That's the logo there. And we started with the Revolve Makers back when we were doing the spinner. Since we've evolved, so we've changed the name to Evolve Makers. So you can find us at evolvemakers.com, and that logo is going to change so that the R turns into an E. So that's it. If you have any questions.
All right. So the questions I'm asking most people are, did you introduce yourself?
I'm Michael Hogarty. So I'm the Nova Labs Metal Shop Steward, along with another member here, Mike Hoyer, and I teach pretty much everything you've seen here. I either have taught or teach during our corporate innovation training program. So that's woodworking, CNC, 3D printing, laser cutting, design for manufacturing, reverse engineering, all of the skills needed to make physical products. Such a broad spectrum when you get into a makerspace. So I do that. I've done product design. I did automotive technology for 20 years before I got into prototyping and product design. And now I'm moving forward into, so we're learning by doing. And so we're scaling our businesses and helping others to scale their businesses. So I'm moving from, I had a very active role in working in the business as the prototyper, as the designer, as the machinist, as the mechanic, and then learning through trying and failing all the importance of working on your business rather than in it. And so now I'm working with business development, the Small Business Development Center with George Mason University. Bob Smith, who was in here earlier, the SBDC, working with them and trying to make sure that we're constantly iterating and moving forward, listening to customers' needs, building products that meet those needs for a price point that they're willing to buy, vetting out suppliers, and we're working really hard at partnering up with manufacturers and engineers, and through this network that we're building through the Red Blue Collective, the products that we're making and those of the clients and other startups that we're working with are getting to market faster with the barriers are lowered. All the hurdles are being overcome since we're working together as a group. So it's empowering and it's fun to move forward. And that's one of the things that's going on tonight is the Inca meeting. The inventors, some of them get to the point where they need a prototype, or they see a need for product development assistance. Well, it used to be that I would just listen to them and say, okay, how can I make your prototype? And now I'm able to step back and look at it with a new perspective and ask them more critical questions like, why are you even making this? Have you even done a customer interview? Sometimes you get so caught up in just trying to perform the tasks that you're asked to do that you don't think about whether or not you should be doing those things. So I'm at a point now where I can, for myself and for others, ask some critical thought questions, some design thinking questions, and get them focused on whether or not they should be doing what they're doing, and whether or not their business model works, and how to stay on a roadmap to success and to scale. So.
All right, and so now the two questions that I like to ask everybody are, to somebody starting out and exploring the possibilities of joining and interacting with the maker community, what do they need to start with?
It depends on what their goals are. So I represent a very entrepreneurial thought process. So if you're thinking about making a product, I would ask you some very specific questions like what, if you have an idea for something you came up with, have you researched what alternative solutions already exist in the marketplace? Have you talked to anybody that you think would be a customer and asked them if they think that the way you're solving the problem is good, or how are they solving the problem? Make sure that you've validated the value of the problem. How much is it worth? If you're not making a product, if you're just trying to learn to use a tool, then join right away, because it's the best place to be a hobbyist, to learn. 3D printing is a lot of fun. It's still finicky. It's far away from the set it and forget it kind of idea. It takes time to learn that, but almost everything in the makerspace requires a tool chain. You have to design something in CAD, then you have to put it into a piece of software that will then slice it or prepare it to a toolpath of some sort. and then you have to execute that tool path, and it's all dependent on how accurate your measurements are and whether or not you've allowed for the tolerances and inaccuracies in the way the machine cuts or makes a part. So by making parts, by making things, you learn all of those limitations for the machine you're working with. But if your real goal is to develop a business, that's the wrong place to start. So that's my thought process. If you just want to have a hobby, join a makerspace, get involved in the community, make things, and learn by doing. If you want to do a business, makerspace can lower the barriers to validating your proof of concept, but it's not the right place to go for manufacturing assistance. Generally speaking, you want to go to a manufacturer and they'll design in a different way than a makerspace or a maker would. They'll design for scale. So that's where my path has taken me. I joined as a hobbyist thinking about learning to do things so that I could produce a product. As an automotive technician, I was trying to make products for cars, and I thought, I'm going to learn to laser cut, I'm going to learn to 3D print and do CAD, and then I'll have products that I can then market and sell and scale rather than just doing service, which is hard to scale. And I've, in the past 4 to 5 years, learned that I could have had a very successful product business just by knowing the needs of my customers, working with pre-existing designers and manufacturers to design scalable product solutions. And then it's more about marketing and listening to customers' needs and building what they want for a reasonable price point than it is about prototyping and trying to solve problems with 3D printers and laser cutters and whatnot. But making is a crazy thing, because making is everything from just cutting up some stuff with scissors and gluing it together to actually running an injection molding machine at thousands of parts an hour or whatever it is.
So the next question I ask a lot of people is, who is and who isn't a maker?
Who is and who isn't a maker? That's a good question. I guess I'm in an echo chamber here of makers. Makers are someone that makes a physical thing that you can hold in your hand, generally speaking. I guess it could be considered software, but I like to think of a maker as somebody that makes something tangible. So, when you're done at the end of the day, if you can pick it up and hold it in your hands, you've made a thing, you're a maker. And I guess that's, in my mind, kind of the differentiating element to it.
Is there anything else that I haven't asked about that you think is important to say?
Where are we going from here? As a maker community, a lot of us are here because the barriers to industrial equipment have been lowered. So 3D printing in the last 5 years has become much more accessible. The price point for the machines, the software, the CAD has all enabled us to do that. That's been a big driving factor. The software specifically in the last year has gotten better for sheet metal. The cost of machines like water jets and lasers that can actually profile cut metal in the next 2 years will drop even lower. So it's basically, we as makers we're able to play with industrial level equipment in a way that people couldn't before. And so we're able to make real things that you would normally only find on shelves, whereas before you could go in your garage and use a bandsaw and a chop saw, some wood, and make something. But for metal products, it took a lot more work. For complex three-dimensional geometry, it wasn't very repeatable. It was a lot of work. But now that those skills and those tools are accessible by a lot more people. So that's what the maker movement, in my opinion, is access to industrial level equipment that was out of reach before to the masses. So basically democratizing, or whatever, the ability to make goods at a crazy level. So I have an assumption that we're actually going to go backwards before we go forwards, because what I've seen here is that you have a lot of people learning to do things kind of not quite right. So they're designing, they're making, but it's not manufacturable at scale. They're solving solutions that they can understand right in front of them, but that doesn't translate into the market very well. And so it's going to create a whole bunch of these little small niche companies that make low volume products and launch on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, fulfill an order, but they go into a loop where they're constantly needing to social crowdsource fund, or they run into problems in manufacturing because of the unknown. And so we're going to create all these little small markets, and the big companies are looking at crowdsourced funding and they're seeing what's popular and they're grabbing it and they're making it at scale. And so I think there's going to be some kind of a weird shift where a lot of products are made more hobby level and launched, and then the ones that make it to market are acquired by some big company, whether they pay for it or not. But it's just going to be this weird shift where big companies will use social media or crowdsource marketing to validate their own products and lower risk to market for themselves as well. And the way to go to market strategy for everyone is going to become the same thought process. Make a small batch of something, get it out there, see if it goes viral. If it does, make a lot. Does that make sense? Whereas before we used to design in a vacuum and do a bunch of panels and figure out what to make and then make a huge quantity and saturate the market. So you basically tell people what they want and sell it to them whether they want it or not. And now we're in this reverse strategy of asking people what they want, testing it, see if they buy it, and then blowing it up. So that's kind of what I see things going.
Alrighty, and that should do